It doesn't mean it will, obviously, but
Oh, that's the
it,
low?
that's the low for the whole entire
Your
year. Five
mics.
5 degrees.
Celsius
No,
or
Fahrenheit.
oh Fahrenheit. Good evening. Welcome. It's the After Hours show. And I'm joined by Ann Lee, a professor retired. I'm all messed up this evening. Too late, too late. My name's Joe in Norway. I'll be your cook this evening. I'm joined by Ann Lee, retired college professor and community member at the Daily Kos. She's a member of the National Council of Independent Scholars and is a contributor to the book Political Economy of Art, Making the Nation of Culture. Evening, Ann.
Hey there, Joe. What's for supper?
Hey. Well, I thought I might get back to some savory goodness. Simplify things, and all these berries and sweets and jams and syrups. Get a little, give myself diabetes over here.
Yeah,
And also, someone in the community wasn't aware of the versatility of tahini or tahini, sesame paste.
quinoa.
You can find no sesame,
Oh,
not quinoa.
tahini. Yeah. There we
Yeah.
go.
So
Tahini.
it's popular in Middle Eastern countries and China as well. And it's protein packed, it's non dairy. It can be used as a salad dressing, as a dip, a place of mayonnaise. It can be a whole load of different things. So I thought I would have a little threesome with the tahini sauce this evening.
Yum.
Maybe I'll make 3 dishes, I think. So what I'll do is whip up the sauce and then present it in a number of different ways. That the first one is on a knäckebröd, which is a standard Scandinavian piece of cardboard we use for breakfast. It's Vasa crackers, Rivita. So I like smearing that, playing on that with maybe some chili paste and cucumber sliced up. I've got, let's see, I've got we can do my freshly cooked chickpeas were fermenting already. So I've got this old can, got a sale can of hummus here, chickpeas, but they've gone out of. I got them on sale 4 years ago when they were off date in 2020. So I should be all right over that. So I'll make a lazy person's version of hummus, which is just kind of chunky. I've made it before, hummus masbah. And I've also got converted this eggplant, which our dear friend in the community will die if they eat. So in place of roasted eggplant, they can do grilled zucchini, perhaps, squash. So I'm going to make a quick little baba ganoush, or I've got some, I'll leave a couple of these whole and drizzle with tahini sauce and garnish with the little red currants we've got here. I'll go over all of the different ingredients we use to make it. It's very simple, but I'll do a little prep here up front, and then I'll let you commence to yammer. And if you want to maybe do whatever the shortest is, and then I'll cut in for a lot of, I'll have to kind of explain what I'm doing with all of the sauce and whatnot. But if you want to,
Okie dokie.
yeah.
Okie dokie. We ready to go?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Busy week.
Mhm.
There was all kinds of the usual election stuff in the United States. Some strange things happening in Ukraine. I'll get to that. But in the US, which is sort of my little rant today, apparently the zealots who follow the Trump campaign decided that they would stage a photo op because they've been trying to push the controversy of the 13 or 14 service members who were killed in a suicide bombing in Kabul during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Republicans are trying to make great hay out of these and trying to memorialize the loss. Without getting into the depths of the argument, it is pretty clear that in order to claim that he was a peace candidate, Trump made a deal, not a very good deal, with the Taliban, releasing some of the people now currently in charge, and 5,000 members of the Taliban from Afghani prisons, and that just a kind of unilateral move. And needless to say, it revitalized the Taliban. And it's very unclear as to whether there was some prediction of how the Afghani National Army was going to collapse just as the Democrats were going to take hold. Now, note, of course, that there are all these other things going on at the same time: a insurrection, variety of other Trump-like activities. So that all was a long time ago, but they're bringing it back because the GOP is bringing it back because they're sort of short of patriotic tropes from which to sort of leverage certain parts of the base. So Trump tried to create a presidential-looking event of placing a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which has its own interesting kind of history. It's actually, if you've read histories of the Tomb of the Unknowns, it's actually a quite interesting way in which you can talk about nationalism and memorializing and a variety of other things. But anyway, so Trump has this, there's a ceremony, which looks all presidential, but then they have a subsequent photo op in what's called Section 60, which has more recent members of the military who've been interred. And there are special rules that pretty much everyone follows. That is, if you're going to have photography or whatever, you're going to control it, and that it's not used for political purposes. Well, needless to say, the Trump folks ignored that, decided that they would shoot rolling video. They would shoot pictures of Trump grinning broadly, putting his little thumbs up along with folks who, families of the 14 or 13. And they proceeded, and there's no video evidence of this, and I'm sure there is, but it's not going to get shown, of Trump operatives, campaign operatives, pushing a member of the Arlington National Cemetery staff, and clearly, conduct, just opprobrious conduct, just amazing. Now, the current state of it is, of course, that they tried in the initial, this was 3 days ago, and they tried to blame the person who was trying to just simply enforce the rules against campaign-like coverage, to treat, that this Section 60 is a very sacred space. And the point is that Trump minions and not yet identified proceeded to strong arm various people. The cops were called, military police was called, but apparently there's going to be no complaint and probably not an official inquiry. Well, we'll see. And Trump claimed innocence of all of these things. I just showed up there, blah, blah, blah. And it was fascinating because a reporter, asked Trump at the front end in a campaign stop about this event. Trump claimed not to know anything, and then, of course, circled the wagons, let us say. And now, apparently, Trump, the current version of this is that Trump is blaming Gold Star families for causing this kind of problem, where people are complaining that Trump disrespected, and people the graves of their own relatives who are shown in this kind of video coverage, and there are several who died at the same time, and who folks who are not part of this little photo op, the families are quite annoyed. Let's just put it that way. And so people have seized on this for a variety of ways. And so the defense of this, of the Trumpian actions, sort of backfired. J.D. Vance decided that he would, even though Vice President Harris said nothing had made no comment about this, J.D. Vance decided to tell her to go, to tell Vice President Harris to go to hell, whatever that means, in a statement. There's it has I don't think it went the way the Trump people wanted it to go. Let's just put it that way. And it is sort of very typical of Trump to try and take advantage of those things, and he still is quite clueless about why it is that people go to such military cemeteries. I mean, going all the way back to, his disrespect of federal property, of the dead, the war dead from World War II at D-Day and Normandy. Just quite clueless. And of course, what overlapped this were his comments on suckers and losers and a variety of other things, his own disdain for Medal of Honor recipients. At the front end of this, of course, that this event was facilitated by the current Speaker of the House. So all of these matters sort of interrelated. The governor of Utah, who was in part of these photo ops, made a public apology. Lots of other stuff going on, quite problematic. Now, it's pretty clear that a couple of the families truly did appreciate having, the former president there, despite the fact that he was essentially trying to build it into a campaign spot, of which a brief TikTok presentation piece was produced. So there was clearly a campaign usage of material shot at Arlington National Cemetery from Section 60. Totally verboten by the rules. And so that, Joe, do you want to make a comment a bit about the stuff you have in front of you?
Oh no, I'm fine. Still getting
Oh,
things. I'll
okay.
just comment that 4-year-old chickpeas past their prime, sitting in a can that long. I can't tell if I just am accustomed to making my own chickpeas in the pressure cooker, but they're not very tasty. So we'll figure something else out with that. A little
Well,
too old
that reminds me not
or
to not
too
to
tinned.
reminds me not to put off eating chickpeas. Canned chickpea. Anyway, yes, indeed. So that's the current kerfuffle. Um, the general trope is that the issue of so-called stolen valor. The Republicans are trying to pillory. They're just searching around for attack uh, themes. They've been attacking the Democrats' presidential candidate Tim Walz for that same kind of reason. It's still early. We still got a debate coming up. This past week featured a joint appearance with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris with Donna Bush from CNN, who asked a couple of stupid questions. But pretty much it worked the way it did. There were, of course, production values were kind of interestingly problematic at CNN, and I won't comment on that. Although it's worth commenting on. I guess maybe I should comment on it. Apparently, no one was paying attention, and they put Harris in they made her appear much shorter. Let's put it that way. In terms of the way they arranged the shot. I think there's, a hanky-panky going on, needless to say, at CNN. But anyway, do no harm. There was nothing controversial produced. And in fact, probably Harris did what she needed to do. She dodged appropriately a stupid question about whether she'd suddenly had become black, which was the original throwaway line that Trump had made at a Society of Black Journalists appearance, clearly a provocation by Trump. And CNN wanted to make something out of it. She just said, it's old stuff and move on. And needless to say, they did. And so certain elements that did come up, issues of what her values were, whether she was continuing the same positions or whether she was continuing some issues that had come up during her tenure as vice president. So there were policy related questions, some of which are interesting, revelatory. We'll see whether the GOP, Trump, et cetera, make something out of it. A debate is coming up. One where significant fighting about the format continued. So whether the mics were going to continue to be hot or not, that is turned off after a turn of speaking. Apparently, the old rules, that is the rules from the Biden debate, are going to be continued, and so that the mics will be shut off. Of a speaker will be shut off after the time for a response is expired. Now, that doesn't mean to say that, as I think, if you recall from the Biden-Trump debate of 2 months ago, that Trump tended to sort of gish gallop, as they say. He just sort of to crank out points and made Biden appear a little befuddled, and Biden wasn't befuddled, actually. He was just a little out of it. And he actually, if you look at the transcript as opposed to watch the video, you can actually see that the responses are actually fairly reasonable. But fortunately, since Harris has now become the standard bearer, that I think we'll have some crisp responses, perhaps some things that will prevent Trump from doing what he normally does. He does this all the time. Now, claims that he's making a policy speech. He makes no policy speeches. He has no policy. And so he just yammers on and makes personal comments, essentially personal attacks. And so I think that we're going to see the same sort of thing, a kind of cranking out of lies, comments. The timing from the Biden-Trump debate was a lie every 30 seconds. It averaged every 30 seconds over the 90 minutes. The fact checkers went at it, and it's pretty clear it outshone Biden in at least 5 or 10 to 1. So that's I think what we can expect it in this particular context, and Trump will probably make errors, and that was sort of what the Democrats have been counting on with a more live mic. I think you'll hear one or two incredibly inappropriate things that will probably impolitic, I suppose, is the current word for it. And we'll see that in the current debate. So if I have a rant at all, it is that it's been a busy week with the usual problems. Vance still has not hit his stride, and in fact had embarrassing events where he couldn't he couldn't engage in small talk with donut makers. He went to a donut shop and truly had a kind of issue talking to people of color, etc., just trying to buy a donut. So,
Are we certain he's from Ohio?
What? I'm sorry?
Are we certain he's from Ohio? I mean, not being able to be natural around donuts seems color me skeptical.
Middletown, the suburbs of Middletown.
Now,
but
was this
really
interview? No, he was on holiday there, wasn't he? Is my mic coming through all right or no?
I don't know.
Oh.
Tell us what you have there.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I had a question about Harris in the interview. Was this the interview where she said that nothing will change with policy towards Palestine?
I think generally, yes. I mean, she hit the high points: two-state solution, urgency of ceasefires, etc. Pretty much the same. It is clear that in the framing, she's not as a Zionist, whatever that means, as Biden. So whatever that means,
Yeah.
that's the current, at least the progressive framing of it. It's pretty clear that there are questions asked about stuff she has real positions on, but clearly can't be totally open about. For example, fracking, I would assert that she's against fracking, but she can't admit that she's against fracking. And fracking is only one part of energy policy anyway. And it would be political suicide to say that you were against fracking anyway.
All right.
Yes, Joe?
We've got a super simple condiment to make. I've prepped a few little variations of seasonings and whatnot, but we'll just start with the bowl. I think I need to move this over here. No, I'll work over here. Let's see. Ideally, a stainless steel bowl, decent whisk, some tahini sauce, which is tahini butter, which is ground sesame seeds. Now, I prefer the ones from the Levant, so Syrian, Lebanese, Palestinian. These are raw. This is raw sesame seeds that are used, as opposed to a Turkish one. Usually, the ones that come out of the Middle East will be in plastic containers, usually, or if they're from Turkey, they're usually in glass. And the Turkish ones are toasted, usually. There's a dramatic difference in the taste, and one of the biggest problems with tahini is that it's bitter and it's kind of an acquired taste. But once you do get that taste, acquire that taste, it's so addictive, and it's super easy to make, super tasty, and very versatile. But the raw is, I think, less bitter. Um, it tastes, it goes better with more savory things. That's the way I kind of see it. So if you can, find raw. I know in the States, in the natural food stores or in Whole Paycheck, you can find raw tahini quite easily. But we've got no measures here, so you just pour however much you need to make. Again, this sauce is a base for hummus, the base for baba ganoush, the roasted eggplant. Oh crap! I did it wrong already. Jesus Christ! Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Not
want me to-
necessarily wrong, but okay. So first things first, lemon. About half a lemon, I typically use half a lemon in a serving that I'm going to do for a day or so. What am I looking for here? Oh, there we go. Our little garlic tooth. So garlic can be too sharp in a lot of cases. So you might want to just use a little bit, or cut it into rough pieces, or while you cut it, put it in citrus juice, either lime or lemon, and that will cut down on the acid from the garlic and not kind of overpower your sauce. So garlic and lemon juice. Got to do that first. There we go. Now we're back on track here. So one of the tricky things with when you're making kleina is adding water to it. Got cold water, but what's even better is colder water. So you could, if you've got ice cubes around, throw an ice cube in your water pitcher, and there is no specific amount of water that you use. We're eyeballing things depending on what we're going to be using the sauce for. So sometimes you're going to want to leave it thicker so that it's clumpy, and then you mix with something else. Otherwise, you're going to make it keep adding water to thin it out. And also, after you chill it, if it's in the refrigerator, it will tend to thicken itself, and in which case you can just add more water. So one of the things that people kind of freak out about when you're making tahini is if you put a whole load of water in, coagulates, And if that happens, if it doesn't get silky smooth like that, then you just keep stirring and add more liquid. Some basic seasonings are, of course, salt. You can go pretty liberal with the salt. It's not unless you're going to be seasoning it later. Another popular seasoning is cumin. So I've got some ground cumin here. And I'm a big fan of coriander. I know, Laurel, don't worry, you don't have to use this. No coriander, use parsley or something else. But I am a big fan of cilantro. And maybe a little more lemon. Taste it. Mozzarella, a little more salt. And that's it. You've got tahini sauce. Super, super simple, right? So
Yeah.
what we can do with this we've got our fried aubergine or roasted aubergine chopped up. Take a little bit of the tahini. Got some other spices. This is the sumac, so it's very citrusy. It's a fruit or berry that they grind and use. This is just very simple. You could chop it up more if you want. I like it kind of chunky. So now we've got baba ganoush. We could do the same thing with the chickpeas, but they're disgusting, so I'm not going to use those.
Ah,
Let's see what we got here. Let's save dishes. So I told you this is the base for hummus, baba ganoush, the base for salad dressing. But one of the main things you can do is just have it on its own. Right? So you serve it as you would hummus, like the garnish. You could put cumin or, I don't know, say pickles or something. And some olive oil. And then eat that with pita or bread, whatever you have around the house. So we've got just the sauce by itself, and you could leave it thicker. I made it a little thin. So if I didn't put so much water in, it would be more of a paste, but this works too.
yum.
Speaking of thinning it out, it's a little thinner. So these are all Mediterranean dishes, but it's also used in Japanese and Chinese cooking, which we can do another session on that later on. there's our unmashed aubergine. You can use that as dressing on there. We've got some red currants from the garden that we just picked out.
Nice.
Also, this would be the northern version. Instead of pomegranate seeds, we've got red currants and that little festive. And maybe a little. Oh, Jesus. Christmas is right around the corner. Look at that.
Ah,
So roasted eggplant with tahini sauce and red currants. Tahini sauce on its own. And then baba ganoush, which we have to plate up. Let's see what we got. Nice plate here. His favorite plate.
yum.
Go. Just sprinkle of sumac on there. More olive oil. Boom. We got 1, 2, 3, 3 dishes with some salad dressing left over out of one little thing. So highly recommend getting a jar of tahini. It is super practical, all vegetarian, and it keeps for at least 4 days. If you make it too thick, it's can be thinned out with water. If you make it too thin, you can just add more sesame paste. Oh, we had one more thing. Forgot our northern version. We've got some fancy chia sea salt cardboard crackers.
La-
So you can either put the baba ganoush on there. This is the wonderful savory breakfast, right? So just
Yum.
add some on there. Let's try to get that back for the picture later. Nice. And we had some fresh cucumber. Nice with cucumber or paprika, red pepper, yellow pepper, what have you. Super simple, fresh, light, great for breakfast, great for a snack. Highly recommended. So those were the main dishes here.
Excellent.
If
I'm
there's
hungry.
any questions in the audience, you feel free to ask.
Yes, this is James. I have a question, actually, two.
Yes, sir.
I got a
Mhm.
whole bunch of beautiful grapes, 3 big
Mhm.
bunches of them, actually. And I wanted to turn them into jam, and I wondered, do I have to add sugar in order to preserve them, or can I just cook them down without sugar?
The sugar, you need a high sugar content in order to keep the bacteria at bay.
That's what I
Depends
was
on how sweet they are.
They're pretty sweet.
I'm not sure about the pectin content.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get those, like, like a packet of pectin, which has some other ingredients that will,
Yeah.
I can't remember the chemical that they use, but it basically prevents things from going off.
Okay.
Now, not so
And
all natural, but if you're going with the lower sugar content, then yeah.
okay. And then the sesame seeds, I have a bunch of them that I have found difficult to integrate into my cooking as such. And I have a mortar and pestle. Could I grind those sesame seeds into tahini?
I suppose you might be able to try. I would say that's a fruitless adventure, but you'll get a great workout.
Okay. All right.
What I tend to do is have a little container up in the cupboard. Oh, we're empty already. So I'll slowly toast a bunch of sesame seeds. So I'll have those available for garnishing. So toasted sesame would be nice on here. And what I do before serving the toasted sesame, I grind it in the, or I just take, pour the sesame seeds that have been toasted onto the cutting board, take my, which one is this? Pestle. And just kind of roll it to crush a little bit of it. Unless you have one of those fancy Japanese suribachi, where you can grind the sesames.
Well, I have mortar and pestle.
Yeah, you can put it in there and then just, if
Okay.
you don't want to mess it up, just throw a pile on the cutting board and roll this over, and it'll crush the seeds, so it'll release the flavor and mix a little bit better into the dish. In terms of using a bunch, what do you got, kilos or something?
No, I've got maybe a pound of sesame seeds.
Are these the hull? They're unhulled.
They're white and little, and they look to be raw.
Yeah.
And so I think they're ready to go.
Baking,
I'll
I use it in bread baking. Otherwise, I'll toast them. And then put
I'll
them in
try
everything.
toasting them and then grind them up a little, put them on stuff, see how they taste. Okay, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
No problem. All right, and that was my part of the cooking session this evening. I hope, Laurel, this was helpful.
I had a quick question.
Anybody? Oh, sure.
Did you say you can substitute roasted zucchini for the eggplant?
Sure.
In baba ganoush, would that work too?
Yeah, so just instead of doing the eggplant, grill the zucchini. So you could cut it either this way or lengthwise, put it in a pan, maybe a little out. You can do it dry, it doesn't matter. And then I usually cover it so it steams a bit, and then toast it, bring it to like medium-high heat, flip it till it's sufficiently cooked, and then you're good. The more you
Excellent.
cook it, the mushier it'll get. But if you like it fresher, don't cook it so much, and you get chunkier. But yeah,
Great.
what else is? Yeah, whatever else you can roast.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Nothing off the top of my head. Sure thing. But yeah, I mean, we eat this on a daily basis, so we always have it in the refrigerator, and you can either, quickly make one of these or do some other dish with it. Great. Good.
So would you put the tahini? Would you put the tahini in the refrigerator to store it?
Yeah.
After you.
Yeah. So it'll keep
Okay.
for 3 to 4 days. It's all yours, man.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. Note that we won't have Twilight Zone tonight, but we're going to be discussing later on. And another episode of The Prisoner, I think episode 14 or 15, 14, I think. And the usual joy will occur. We're going to be looking at in the pod, we're going to be looking at, I think, The Big Short on Sunday, since we're not going to be watching Star Trek. Weekly Marks is tomorrow. You'll get a preview of that at some bright and shining moment. There'll be music in the evenings. There's always music in the evenings. Let's just put it that way. We're in this sort of transition period, much like Labor Day is coming up. We'll wish you a happy weekend. It's also the 10th year anniversary of the tan suit scandal, where Obama was criticized for wearing tan suits. So much so that a congressperson from Long Island, that's how you pronounce it, accused this wearing a tan suit as being a kind of terrorist act. It's just quite inexplicable, but you can imagine all of the usual issues of the period a decade ago. And in other news, Trump is backpedaling on supporting a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. He's a Floridian, and he's been put up against the wall about whether he is or isn't going to vote for it. And of course, that's made his followers, some of his base, quite annoyed, as though he was backpedaling. This added to his little issue at the Arlington National Cemetery, shows there's all kinds of other issues going on in the war in Ukraine. The first F-16 was shot down or crashed, let's put it that way, this coming week. There was an argument that it might be from friendly fire, a Patriot missile. I don't think so, but the jury is still out on admitting whatever happened. But yes, a pilot was killed in that particular an F-16 pilot was killed, and that's unfortunate. It being only the first couple of weeks where F-16s are being used in air defense, that is, with air-to-air missiles shooting down Russian cruise missiles, which are being launched at a fairly high volume against Ukraine and all across the country and a variety of places. The war in Kursk is slower, but still continues. There's a variety of movement forward by the Russians. Long distance attacks have occurred. A 1,000-kilometer drone attack on Russia occurred. A bunch of drones were sent against Moscow. Moscow air defense claims that they shot them all down. The jury may still be out on that as well. So, but happy 10th year anniversary of the tan suit scandal. There are campus shenanigans going on, campaign shenanigans of a variety of sorts. Trump has put out new ads for NFT trading cards at $100 a pop. And you have to buy 15 of them to get an actual card, which will include a fragment of the suit that he was wearing when from his debate with President Biden. He's tried this before. Fragments of his suits from his being arraigned in Georgia. So selling pieces of relics of his outerwear are part of his little grift. Needless to say, there's still more in the works. There's still controversies over ATACMS, that is the longer distance, high precision, medium range surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, missiles that are being supplied to the Ukrainians. But ATACMS have a considerable range, at least in terms of the area, but there's the usual issues of whether homegrown indigenous munitions are going to be used to attack Russia proper, the sovereign territory of Russia. It is mainly Ukrainian ordnance that is being used on Russian territory. And so it's still about these larger Cold War issues of whether non-Ukrainian equipment is being used in Russia as the Ukrainians continue to move, however, slightly slowly in the Kursk area. And it still raises the question of whether their objective is the Kursk nuclear plant. Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant has also been sort of under risk recently. There's another sort of side issue. The Russians did send missiles towards Kyiv this past, partially in response to these advancements by the Ukrainians, and there was some damage, but nothing serious. There wasn't a breach in Kyiv hydroelectric plant. The Kyiv hydroelectric plant obviously services the urban area, Kyiv city, and that's of course an issue. There's been relatively little in attacks on either country's grid, but they're clear. It's clear that people are making motions towards hurting each other in that way. So it is a kind of mutual deterrence in that sense of being careful not to wipe out the grid yet. But we can see that the Ukrainians want to threaten the idea that they could shut off in the big picture. Perhaps they've targeted the Moscow grid, for example. That would be interesting during the winter. But needless to say, and this past week, there was a superseding indictment for Donald Trump in the D.C. Insurrection law case that Jack Smith changed elements of the indictment to accommodate the Supreme Court's declaration, as it were, opinion on presidential immunity. And surprise, surprise, there still is plenty to prosecute Trump on relative to the January 6th insurrection. Anyway, the other unhinged sort of activity was occurring. Trump is cranking out the insults, several racist ones. He reposted a quite vulgar comment on relating Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, and it hasn't been amplified, but clearly he's just gets a little unhinged at times in his flurry of insults. Needless to say, racism and sexism are at work. Let's see other things. I mentioned the argument over microphones. There's some comments that the polling is shifting to a Harris lead in most of the swing states, which is an interesting development. Generally, Harris polling has swung in the upward direction with some somewhat serious, but still within the margin of error, leads being created so that they're slightly marginal leads of 50 to 48, et cetera. And considering that there are 67 days left, we'll see. An interesting election is coming up. What else? I've talked about what's coming up later in the evening. Back to Ukraine. Apparently, the Russians assume that the Ukrainians are not going to hold the oblast, the Kursk Oblast, that is the state, the region of Kursk. They don't think that the Ukrainians can hold all that land, and they might probably not able to. They would require much more forces to hold the area, and so Russia, as a result, is deploying lower priority forces. In other words, they're not sending frontline units to support or reinforce the area of Kursk, even though the Ukrainians are something like 30 kilometers into sovereign Russia, the first time sovereign Russia has been invaded since World War II. Debate continues. We'll see whether that's going to be an issue. I put up a thing on in 2025. There's the potential of a default on U.S. debt, but it's probably not going to occur. But it's not a good thing to have it happen exactly at the same time we might have insurrection 2.0. So there's an interesting set of problems there. There's a suggestion that the primary Trump demographic of non-college whites is being threatened in the current polling climate. And the other thing, since I'm alternating one thing and the other, back to the Ukraine war,
before you go back to the Ukraine,
now. Yes.
Before you go back to the Ukraine, regarding
Yes.
insurrection 2.0, are the feds hearing
Yes.
any chatter about that? Organizing going on? Are they keeping quiet? I haven't heard any news.
I think they're keeping quiet, but in relation to that, the Democrats are deploying 5 times or 10 times the number of lawyers. They've budgeted for a huge legal team to adjust to what are potential insurrection-related legal suits. The other news of that, which I think would make some people worried, is that putting of Trumpian election officials. Trump even gave them props in Georgia, that they've included new rules that suggest that you could raise any doubt at the regional election level to stop the processing or the transmission of results. And so there's an internal debate going on within Georgia, whether the governor has enough power to stop this craziness, or whether it'll be lawfare. It'll be litigation of a variety of. So they're going to pull the same thing, but at a slightly different level. I mean, I'm sure the FBI is keeping track of people like Patrick Byrne, the Overstock tycoon or oligarch who clearly gave money, and this will come out in the trial, clearly attempted to interfere with the election by seizing votes in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. So there's hanky-panky could still happen. Let's put it that way. So yes, everyone's worried about that. My last little comment is on Ukraine. There's still more to talk about in U.S. elections, but the last thing I'll say about Ukraine is analysts say that the scale of the war, that is the scale of commitment from all sides, one campaign, a single campaign will not be a military campaign will not be able to resolve the war. So it's going to be, diplomacy and ceasefires. And I saw one little proposal that is a good idea, and I hope that it does happen, because I think it's probably a demilitarized zone consisting of 5 to 8 oblasts that border Ukraine as the demilitarized zone would be probably the best, the optimal result in terms of peace in the area or an end to the conflict. But we don't really know where that's going to happen. It's still, both sides are making drones. There's bigger factories. There's more types of drones. There's still equipment being transferred, and the usual is deployed. So that's needless to say. Also, RFK Jr. Endorsed Trump, and apparently is being promised something in the to sort of gain whatever support from RFK Jr. that would, in the swing states, support Trump. Whether that's really going to happen, the initial polling shows that when you take Kennedy out of the equation in terms of polling, apparently more people will, Harris will gain more from this defection than Trump. There are fewer people who will support Trump in terms of a split of RFK Jr. polling. And so the vote favors, I think, Harris in that particular context, but that's just preliminary and only applies to, certain places. This is polling, I think, in Michigan. Needless to say, at the end of the week, Harris is ahead, but by a margin of error lead, and a major shift and a difference from when Biden was the lead candidate. And other than that, the usual things apply. The usual craziness applies in this election week. We're getting to the end of our little event here. Thank you, Joe. Is there something else you'd like to say, Joe?
No, I just hope the tahini sauce was a helpful little hint for people to get a little extra protein into their diet. It's
Yes.
so simple and practical. Takes no time to whip up, and you just have it there on. It's great.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull the hummus out of my fridge now because I'm hungry. We'll really
Alrighty.
try and do better next week, folks. We really, thanks to those in the pod who participated, and we'll see you all next week.